As New Zealand's productivity challenge intensifies, now is the time to be visionary. AI presents an opportunity to transform our productivity performance. However, productivity gains won't come from AI itself, but from how effectively its opportunities are acted upon. Kia ora, I'm Cheree Kinnear, and I'm joined today by an expert panel to unpack the latest 2 degrees Deloitte Access Economics report, Productivity Propelled, which explores how AI adoption is shaping business productivity here in New Zealand. With me, I have Liza van der Merwe, lead partner at Deloitte Access Economics New Zealand, Andrew Fairgray, the Chief Business Officer at 2 degrees, and Elliot Smith, the Chief Customer Officer of Business at Kiwibank. Thank you so much for joining me. Andrew, we'll start with you first. Tell me a little bit about this report, and it's the second year that 2 degrees has been involved with it. So first of all, why are you involved in it?
We think there's a challenge in productivity in New Zealand. We need to lift it from a New Zealand Inc. perspective to support lifting wages in New Zealand. We don't believe you can save yourself to a wealthy economy. You need to lift productivity. And we've got lots of natural assets. So from our perspective, we've got world-class networks that we could be leveraging. So how do we get a stake in the ground and say this is where productivity is? And that's where we started last year. And then this year, with the scope, we added AI. We could see the emergence of AI and how it could transform New Zealand, but it's probably fair to say the insight that we got from the research is probably like taking us to another level of why we want to share this with the overall market.
Liza, I'll pass to you quickly. Do you want to give us a little bit of a kind of top view on what was discovered in this report?
The report is almost structured into two components. So the first component is more just a view on productivity. As New Zealand, what have we actually achieved in terms of productivity over the past year compared to our first report? And what we have found is there's quite a deterioration. So for example, if you look at labour productivity, that fell by 0.7%. Capital productivity drop, multi-factor productivity drop, GDP per capita drop, investment spending contracted. So the only key driver that there was a slight uplift was in research and development spending. So that's now 1.56%. But again, if we look at OECD, the average there is 2.7%. So we definitely still have a long way to go to address New Zealand's productivity challenge. What we've done just very quickly in this report is we looked at AI as an emerging lever to address the productivity challenge. So a key differentiation in terms of this report is we surveyed New Zealand businesses so that we can capture what was the contribution and the impact of AI over the past year. So the insights of the report is not a forward-looking view of what it could be. It's actual facts, actual firm behaviour, what we've seen. And I think we will get into the details, but in summary, what we have found is that there's a definite link between AI and AI adoption and productivity. And for example, your small to medium enterprises that has actually adopted AI over the past year, those firms have achieved productivity. And what it means from a revenue perspective is that their revenue is about 4.3% higher. For large businesses, a similar finding, but their revenue is about 6.8% higher. So I think what I want to emphasize is it's not just a hype. It's there already. It's contributing to productivity, but it is only the start.
When we take a look at that adoption, I'd love to bring you into this part as well, Elliot. 82% of New Zealand businesses report using AI. That sounds like quite a big number, but I'm sure that includes, a full range of, in different ways that they're using it. So what does it actually look like in practice? Can you give us any insight, for instance, at Kiwibank even? How is that actually being used?
When we started rolling out Copilot for our team members, a good helpful start, but as Copilot, as an example, really understands your enterprise context. So the richness of our internal, data sets, our internal policies, when it understands you and your organisation, the powerful nature of what it can do to help change workflows or support team members and helping customers becomes really, really apparent. Good examples, I think, are things that are happening in search engines. The sort of research out there that suggests, or it's probably more than suggests now, that Google search will drop by 25% this year. And where it's shifting is effectively AI search engines or embedded search engines. So we're seeing customers come through our public websites, and if they're coming through AI search agents, they're 4 times more likely to convert for things that they're looking at with us, because they come ready to purchase, they come ready with the things that they're learning. So I think part of what we're seeing is people, that knowledge base and that ability to sort of be ready for the conversation that they're wanting or what they're looking for is pretty amazing. And it's, as Liza said, just right at the early stages of impact.
It's all very well waving a flag saying you want to be a world leader, but it's so much more powerful if you can actually demonstrate what use cases are and what the return is going to be. So what Elliot's just described, how Kiwibank are using it, how Deloitte are using it, how we're using it, how small businesses, the more we share how each other are using it, we'll all benefit from. It's all readily available. Rather than talking about nirvana out there somewhere, it's here and now. We're not in a cyclical productivity period. We need structural change. And with the addition of AI that we can see through here and the numbers that Liza quoted, the growth potential for businesses, whether they be small or large, means that if we can grab the structural change and leverage this on the world-class networks that we've got banks that can support the funding and the cash, and cash remains king, we can lift the overall economy of New Zealand. And there's a great piece in the research that you can see is that actually we need to start with innovation, and AI provides the platform for that. Through innovation leads into productivity, and once we get productivity, we get economic growth. And then from an economic growth perspective, you get better communities. And so that's why fundamentally we're so committed to it. It's the end point of having a better New Zealand. How can we actually uplift everyone through what is a lifetime change that we're all experiencing?
Where do you think realistically, though, New Zealand businesses are sitting on the AI maturity curve?
Based on the data that we collected from firms in January and February, what we've seen is that New Zealand firms are really still almost in the middle stages of maturity. On average, so we developed the AI adoption index for 2025, 2026. What we have seen is on average, so out of a score of 100, New Zealand firms are around 40, so 40 out of 100. So it's still a long way to go. There is a differentiation between small, medium enterprises and larger businesses. So your small to medium enterprises is currently the average at 33, whereas your larger businesses are at 47. What we have seen is that there's quite a variance in governance and governance structures. So that in itself is also just indicating that it's a sign that foundations for New Zealand are still being built.
Talking to a customer in the hospitality sector, and what they were thinking about was how do they improve the dining experience for customers, looking at things like allergies and what they can order off the menu, and trying to improve the productivity of their restaurant by giving options for customers to understand what can go with what, rather than waiting for someone on the serving staff. So I do think there's quite a really nice ambition for experimentation for businesses, and just trying to find those use cases. And I guess you'll see it in your business, Andrew, as well. Just the encouragement to try things out is really helpful in building that momentum.
We've spoken a bit about how AI is integrated, but what does it actually mean, do you think, or how does it look to have a meaningful AI integration? What
are the processes, the decisions, the interactions with our team and our customers that can benefit from the tools? So start at the sort of first principles rather than I'm looking for an AI solution that I want to apply to a problem. So going back a little bit to wiring of how how we run our organisation and ask those questions, but also wanting to make sure that we can encourage people that are further down the sort of the curve of knowledge in our business, and they'll be no different to a lot of places, I think, to give them confidence to use the tools to try things out. And you talk about AI safety and the guardrails, and I think that's true. Just making sure there are some parameters for people to work in, but giving them the confidence, for example, to test how we ingest customer information to speed up a credit decisioning process. Andrew talked before about productivity. One of the things that can benefit New Zealand productivity is helping small businesses access capital, and we want our capital to move at the speed of their ambition, not the speed of our processes. And so, how do we get information closer to customers and team members to make decisions that speed that up? Because I think that is the sort of reinforcing cycle a little bit.
And for us, we want to remain being the value player. So as a brand, we've always been about fighting for fair. So we have over 100 developers all based in New Zealand today. So yet we still have a backlog of things to do. And so it will be able to free developers to do more meaningful tasks, get through backlog was one example. So that will take cost out of our business, ensure that we can remain the most valuable player in the market. Also from a network management perspective, it looks at self-healing and what can be done there. And then from a sovereignty perspective, making sure we create an environment that all the data remains in New Zealand is supporting that. So again, it comes back to that examples, and probably Elliot and I are sharing a couple of big company examples, but it really is what is the outcome and how does it make you more effective and more productive. We actually have to be thinking about what our operation looks like tomorrow, leveraging the capability. And I think we've got a wonderful country, but we're still only 5 million people, and we forget that that is a limitation. However, if we leverage AI agents and the capability and the infrastructure we've got, there's no reason why we couldn't become the Switzerland of the new world.
I want to go back to you, Liza, really quickly to talk about the productivity gap. So in the report, it shows a really strong gap between the adopters and the non-adopters. But is this about AI specifically, or can we look at more kind of broader capabilities like skills and other systems as well in business?
I will say that AI is a component of it. It's a key driver of it. But businesses who are also adopting AI potentially also have a different mindset, and as part of that, they have better capability, better business strategies, better governance. So it's almost a system of that and a combination of that that's really driving higher productivity gains compared to businesses who are non-adopters.
Mm-hmm. When we've got businesses with those different mindsets when it comes to AI adoption, do you think that there is then, in relation to that, a gap between high and low performing firms?
That mindset is the commitment to try. But I think the great thing for small businesses in New Zealand in particular, and we, Andrew and I talk about sort of being in large businesses, but the irony is that makes small businesses be bigger because the tools are so productive, and the ability to leverage them without, for example, freelancers who used to have big networks now don't need them because they've got, ways to get information, curate information. I just think encouraging businesses to be really thinking about that productivity benefit that they get, I think is hugely exciting for this country.
Do you think at all, though, that we could be at risk of having a sort of two-speed economy situation?
If we don't change things like our structured data, so where we put our information for search engines to generative AI generative search engines to find that information, if we don't put that effort into that structured data, which is how they provide the recommendations and then inform the customer, we will be left far behind by that. And so I think there'll be a bigger acceleration of the difference because of where consumer behaviour is going to, where the tools are going to.
It's all about what do we do today to ensure that risk doesn't really eventuate. So, I mean, if we make good adoption easier for the long tail firms and small to medium enterprises, we can actually address that risk head on and ensure that we achieve, we address the productivity challenge for New Zealand, achieve economic growth and innovation.
I think we'll probably even see it inside businesses. There'll be two speeds. Those that embrace and use, and those that don't. It's just moving so fast, and I think, as I said earlier, this year the acceleration of the tools and the capability of the tools. If you don't move forward, I mean, we've got a whole generation that are coming through that are digitally native. They're using these tools every day now, and so whether they're using them at work or their side hustle, their expectation is they want to use the tools to bring value. And so organisations and businesses, if they want to harness that, need to embrace and be prepared, I think, to fail. It's also one of the pieces, just being brave to try something quickly, see what works, and then go. But being really clear on what the outcome is you're trying to achieve, but have a play. If nothing else, they pick up the report and they read, and if they want some more insight, they can reach out to any of us. But I think the global insight and the global view that it's centralised to New Zealand, because a lot of the surveys we get aren't relatable to New Zealand of who we are, and if nothing else, just start at that, being curious.
Is there a world where we could make it sort of more SME-friendly, for lack of a better term, and make the AI adoption a little bit easier for those smaller businesses? Is there a way that can exist?
The way that we can introduce new use cases to small to medium enterprises can make it quite easy for them for quick wins. And if we look at the top barriers identified in the survey by small to medium enterprises, one is related to cost. So any support that we can provide them or incentives that we can provide to support small to medium enterprises to adopt AI might help. The other key barrier is around skills and access to skills. So what are we doing about workforce to address that key barrier? And the other one is more around, again, governance. So any support or lessons learned from larger businesses to smaller businesses can really support them.
When we take a look at the investment shift within organisations, some firms are allocating significant future budgets into AI. Do we think that businesses are reorganising around AI fast enough, or do you think that needs to actually be increased in speed?
To the extent we can stay close to international markets. For example, if we look at China, I mean, their adoption and what they do with AI is just significant and almost at another level. So if we can be almost early adopters of those use cases in New Zealand, that can be really, really beneficial.
The actual cost of the AI application, a lot of it is still very, I suppose, front-ended and invested from those AI organisations that they're going to want to return somewhere. So making sure that the economics makes sense for your organisation and the cost profile makes sense. So not AI just for the sake of AI. Again, what is the outcome you're trying to achieve and how you can be more efficient using it. So I think that's probably the important part of it. But relative to, we operate in a global economy now. The world is moving forward. I think research is quite clear. New Zealand are behind the rest of the world. You just have to travel overseas and you see some of the things that are going on. Here's our moment in time to say, let's do something about it and support businesses, and that's what this is for. It's not to preach about what any of us know better. It's how do we support businesses and help them to be curious and then enable them from any of our organisations, whether that be from a telecommunications to capital to insight to support and understanding and consulting of how they get there. We think we just got to help each other and then we can move forward.
Why do you think we haven't been able to keep up with AI in terms of that investment, falling back, and what can be done to speed things up?
It'll take leadership and the business itself to really be excited about its potential. And there's, as Liza pointed out, there's quite a big spectrum of perspectives out there about AI and the mindsets. And so part of our role is to try to build confidence for people rather than, and there would be a natural fear about my work and my role, and they're legitimate questions I think organisations have to ask and answer, but being really upfront with people about here's what we're thinking about, this is what we're trying, that sort of open communication I think is really, really important to bring our business on the journey. And I think for smaller businesses who maybe don't have the sort of leadership infrastructure as much, is just what are they trying to use it for, being really open about giving it a go and trying things out. I think just getting started is pretty important in this phase.
Based on our report and the data that we collected, what we've seen is that the investment in AI is actually already significant. So even though we might feel behind, but just to provide an example, businesses who were established in the last 2 years, so still relatively new businesses, they currently invest about 50% of their total technology spent already in AI. And they expect that to increase to more than about 60% in 2 years. And I mean, on average, it's about 30% of their total spend of their technology investment. So overall, it's quite significant already.
What risks would come with more rapid investment without maturity?
Any investment that doesn't generate a return might be the end of their discovery phase or their business. And so the counter of that, though, is if you don't, you might get eaten anyway by someone who can. So it's one of those situations where I think, do your homework, find a friend, find a mentor, find a coach, and ask someone to help you if you're not sure, and be kind of clear, and then have a go. I think the risk of not doing anything should be something that we're all concerned of from a New Zealand Inc. perspective of not doing anything. We'll just get left behind.
What does it take to move from ad hoc adoption to a more strategic integration?
Investment in training and education for businesses so that they can actually consume the right tools and support that they need as we go into something new are critical. And then doing what we're doing, sharing stories and sharing insight and showing what works. I mean, if I go back to the numbers if you're a small business and you can hear that if you employ AI, there's a close to 5% uplift in your revenue number, why wouldn't you want to have a go? If you're a large business, it's close to 6-7%.
We're a bit of a quiet achiever nation, and that's great in a sense, but we really miss the opportunity to tell some incredible stories about the businesses around this country doing amazing things. And I think there's a real challenge out there for everyone to champion and share and embrace some of the stories of the businesses doing absolutely incredible things on the world stage. I sort of don't want to call out an in particular one, but I will, because a business that won one of the categories, Starboard Maritime, which is pretty high profile at the moment, just with what's happening in the Gulf of Hormuz, is a really great example of a business adopting and really built on AI to have impact globally. And I just, how do we just make sure we can build and create and highlight and celebrate these stories of people, giving it a go, not just, but actually fundamentally changing a sector and industry. I think it's on us to really bring those stories to life.
Liza, when it comes to productivity overall in New Zealand, we continue to face long-standing productivity challenges. That's just, the fact of the matter here. And AI is sort of positioned as a lever. Is it important that we look at it not as a silver bullet to fixing everything?
AI is one lever, but it's not the silver bullet. It's an enabler. It's also not just about the actual adoption of AI, but it's about how you use it, how you integrate it, how do you integrate in an end-to-end process. So it's definitely not the silver bullet, but it's a key enabler.
What do you guys see for the future?
I think it's very, very exciting for New Zealand. I think the research relative to the system, I think, was a really clear point, that it's actually an overall system, that all the parts need to play, from the mindset to the skills to the tools, that being in an organisation, whether you're small or large, operating and having an organisational design that you have today shouldn't be what you're thinking about for tomorrow. This piece around that it is actually a moment in time, that we need a structural change for productivity in New Zealand, that we are not in a cycle of down. There actually needs to be, I suppose, a break point. And to Lisa's point, this is not a silver bullet, but it's a component that we can leverage on. The world is a very, very interesting place at the moment. So let's harness that for New Zealand Inc. to lift up and embrace and take advantage of. The fact that, as Liza quoted, startups that are started in the last 2 years have got 50% adoption of these tools and processes, and so that should help them get through the next 2 years. And we all know the early years are the hardest years, so now that may mean that they can get broader reach. They might have more efficient supply chains because they're leveraging it. It might mean that they can manage their cash flow through leveraging an AI agent for a period of time until they get to that next piece where they may have had to actually go and hire someone, but they weren't quite ready for that. So yeah, I'm very optimistic, but from a perspective of optimistic, we need to do something. Be curious. Starting is the most important thing, and no one is behind. We're all at the same starting point. It's just a significant moment in time to have another tool to lift the performance of your business and ultimately drive better productivity for New Zealand.
If there were to be one key message or key point from this report that you'd want people in business to take away, what would that be?
My key message again is just emphasising that this is the first report in New Zealand providing a snapshot of current behaviour of firms around AI adoption in New Zealand. It's not referring to international benchmarks, it's what's happening on the ground. What we see is that it's already adding to productivity gains.
And for you, Elliot?
Giving it a go and actually getting started on some tools, I think is the most important thing for a lot of businesses that I talk to, and just encouragement. New Zealand's a country that I think has a willingness to lift each other up. I do think that there's a sort of genuine curiosity for helping people and helping other businesses, and there's a great network of experienced advisors and leaders and other people out there. I just don't be shy about asking for help and being curious about it, because New Zealand, I think, has a generosity of spirit in that sense, and if we do make that effort and businesses are curious, there's lots of ways that this technology and capability can help them. So yeah, real give it a go, I think, mindset would be fantastic.
Great. Thank you so much, all three, for chatting with me today and for your insights. It's been a very interesting conversation.